Okay, here we go. We're getting started tonight. Let me just say hi to the viewers in the live chat. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa, host, researcher, investigative journalist. I'm so humble. I really should just, be more blunt. And as the Sag that I am, I shouldn't have a problem with that. Hi, everybody. How are you? Good to see you. We have a lot to report tonight. Today is Wednesday, May 6, 2020. This is GoldFish Report number 489. This is week 171, POTUS report. The Great Awakening has arrived. And it's arrived, as we expected it. Actually, let me just make sure my headset is working. Yeah. It arrived as we expected it because we knew that, hi everybody, thanks for joining me. It arrived as we expected it because we knew that everybody was going to, eventually the news was going to shock people. Eventually, we always knew, if you followed Q, dark to light, right, that everything was going to come out and be exposed. The corruption, that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about the deepest, we're talking about a game of corruption of our most trusted individuals in positions of power, as Q has told us. It's not a surprise, right? The head of the National Institute of Allergy and Disease is Anthony Fauci, right? Academia, right? We have Harvard University. Well, we're going to get into this. We have Harvard University involved in this whole thing. China, right? Head of finance with all the funding. If you're not playing ball, you're not going to get funded through your academic research and through the universities and other labs that get that provide the funding for universities to do their research. I know about this personally because I graduated from a very large research university. I was involved in research in the university I went to, and I'm, quite familiar with this. And, quite honestly, if you're not playing ball, you're not getting funded. So, so when you're trying to get into a PhD program, it's very difficult because if your research is not aligned with a laboratory, the research they're doing in a laboratory, then you're not even going to get into that lab. And it's sad because it inhibits growth and innovation in our country. And in this case, it inhibits cures. I'm sorry to report this. Let's see. I'm going to have to share this. I was watching this program. I think everybody has seen it now, called A Plague of Corruption by Dr. Judy Mikovits, right? Mikovits. And it's now, I'm sorry to say, you can see for yourself. This video has been removed for violating YouTube's terms of service. Now, YouTube's terms of service are truth, right? Anything that doesn't, and Susan Wojcicki said this herself. She said that anything that does not, anything that's being reported or anything that's being discussed on YouTube that is not in alignment with the World Health Organization will be removed. She specifically said this in an interview. This is a public forum, and I do think that our constitutional rights do, as large and as functional as this is. I think even though it's a private platform, it's also a public platform because the public is able to use it and the public interacts on it. So I think by definition, it has redefined itself out of that private aspect into the public because it is a public forum. However, they are controlling and censoring speech. This is a big deal. This movie, or the short 25-minute movie that she published, really outlined the tragedy that really happened not only for her personally, but for all of us. And, I have to tell you that at the end, if you didn't see it, I'm sure it'll come out again somewhere. Someone will have a link. The interviewer had asked her, aren't you at all concerned about, your health now, that you knew that they locked you up in prison in order to silence you. They put a gag order on you to silence you. Aren't you at all concerned about your health and safety? And she just plainly said, if she doesn't, then um, then it may very well be the end of our republic, of our constitutional, of any rights, and of humanity, because this is an agenda. It's a destruction agenda. She outlines in this whistleblower interview that that the National Institutes of Health and Allergy, what the department Fauci works for, that Fauci's been in this and has said he's been within these 5 administrations he's worked in. So he's been controlling all of this. So why do you think President Trump would have Fauci up there talking? Well, we can't really expose corruption. We can't expose the corruption to the masses if they don't know who he is. It has to play out. As painful as it is for most of us who get it already, it has to play out. It has to play out for the masses to wake up. There was some very, very wonderful clips in that movie. That 25 minutes really said an enormous amount, where there was many different doctors being interviewed, had videos up on YouTube, and were protesting the CDC, or the National Institute of Health, and even the World Health Organization recommendations for coronavirus, for COVID-19, saying you don't, you know, you don't put masks on people who are going to reinfect themselves and re-stimulate their own, responses to their own viruses. And I don't understand the virology of it 100%, but that was the gist of what I understood, right? That's not how we treat viruses and disease. That we, in fact, have to be exposed to all of this in order to build up our own immune system, because she specializes in creating products that, for immunotherapy. That's her specialty, immunotherapy. And so she was railroaded. Her research was hijacked. It was taken from her. Other people took credit, Fauci. And then Fauci went and took, that he went and applied for patents on all of this, and like for the AIDS and AIDS virus and the cures. And of course, if they have control over that, then and withhold that from the public, then the public will not be treated. And this is what happened with the COVID-19. Okay, Fauci's known for a very long time that hydroxychloroquine is an effective treatment for coronavirus, especially according to Dr. Judy Mikovits, right? And they are deliberately withholding it. Where did all of the hydroxychloroquine go before the outbreak of the coronavirus? Disappeared, according to her. So, folks, if you realize here, and one of the first things she outlined and highlighted in the beginning of that interview was what I talked about in my last report, not the political theater report, but my interview on the justice, U.S. justice, the broken branch. And that was that she was held in prison with no charges. When you have the powers that be all coordinated together to work out a conspiracy against humanity, not just American people, but against humanity, then, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, and not that it's nothing you don't already know, because all the viewers of the GoldFish Report get it. Now's the time. This is the fight for humanity. Everybody has to wake up. Everybody has to fight for themselves. There's no savior, folks. Donald Trump's not going to do it by himself. There is responsibility, isn't it? We, the people. Yeah. It's not our president Donald Trump's going to hand, he's not, that's not how it works. He's not, you know, he has certain powers, and so do we. Now, we're the checks and balances to the whole system. If the judiciary is the broken branch, if the legislature is the broken branch, if the executive office is the broken branch, then we have the responsibility as the American people, right? All three of those branches of government are supposed to be the check and balance for each one of them. But when all of them are compromised, when all of them consolidate the power together, then the American people are screwed. And she said there and said herself, there are no rights in this country. And that's exactly what we talked about for 2 hours with Austin Steinbart, with Dr. Scott Werner, and myself, who all have had experiences where the abuse of power under color of law, right? Deprivation of rights under color of law. Q posted this. Let's see, what did I do with it? I didn't put it up here, but it's on the Q board. Deprivation of rights under color of law. When someone's rights are denied under color of law, which is abuse of power, using the power of the government, the authority of the government, and so forth. This is the time for our government to stand up, and they are not going to have any choice. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about the career bureaucrats. We're talking about the ones who infiltrated our government under this agenda to destroy America. That's who we're talking about. They're not going to have any choice because the rest of the people are not playing ball anymore. You see, the doctors aren't playing ball anymore. The doctors are all going on YouTube and making statements, and they're saying because their conscience spoke to them. And as doctors who took the Hippocratic oath to say, do no harm, they are standing by their oath, unlike a lot of other people who took an oath of office and don't, and think that's like a bazooka gum wrapper. Dating myself. So we, the people, have to hold them accountable. Get ready. Get prepared to decide what you're going to do, because each one of us have the duty and the obligation to do something. We are the check and balance to the Declaration of Independence, to the Bill of Rights, to our Constitution. We are the checks and balances. And you don't have a right to complain if you're not going to stand up for it. You don't. It's not just my opinion. It is a fact. It's a fact that if you don't like it here, you certainly can leave. But understand that we're in the United States of America. This is in the United States of America, right? If we are not going to hold the light of the world and the hope of the world right now, because the rest of the world is going to follow in our footsteps. Whatever we do here, you have to understand the responsibility is not just here. The implications are not just within the United States, it's everywhere. The rest of the world is standing by and waiting for Americans to wake up from our slumber that we've been in, from this mind control, propaganda. It's all propaganda, folks. Folks, this whole coronavirus pandemic is propaganda. There isn't anybody who thinks that this was a serious pandemic. There's no professionals, there's no doctors, there's no other than the mainstream media, because they're always complicit in, pushing propaganda, fake news, right? We had Project Veritas do several expose videos, as they usually do, talking about that the doctors and nurses in the hospitals are being told to look busy when the camera crews show up. It's fake, folks. It's propaganda. And in 2012, President Obama appealed the Smith-Mundt Act and made it legal. It's legal. Folks, if you don't stand up now, okay, we've already lost this country. So just understand that we've already lost it. We have no rights. How many more people do I have to present on this program who have been railroaded by the powers that be before everybody really wakes up? And these are just a handful of people that I can present to you Do you know how many people this happens to every day? Do you know how many mothers across the country have lost custody of their children for no wrongdoing, never committing harm to their children? That the courts awarded the custody to the abusive parent if there was an abuse allegation made? Do you know the extreme degrees people are going to try to get out of the system? Can you blame them? So I'm focusing this POTUS report tonight on, yes, I'm going to be reporting on the past couple of days of the president, and I'm going to start that in just a minute. But I just wanted to say, folks, we already lost our country. If you don't believe it, listen to the testimony of the people that I presented in that video. Listen to the testimony of Dr. Judy Mikovich, okay? Mikovich, and understand what she's saying. And understand that it's our responsibility. It's time, folks. If you ever heard the call to power, if you ever heard the call to duty, this is the call. This is the call. This is the call. Okay? You're hearing the call. You're hearing it from her video. You're hearing it from my testimony. You're hearing it from Austin's testimony. You're hearing it from Scott Werner's testimony. And let's not forget about the silent voices that are behind bars right now, like Winston Shrout. And you can't hear his voice anymore because he's silenced. He's removed. So he can't influence anybody else anymore. How many more people is it going to take before you start to say, I'm not going to put up with this? Because it'll be you next. Right? It'll be the doctors next. It'll be somebody else, some other profession, some other field where it's going to happen. And somebody with a conscience, right? Who is the Dutch banker? We just had the Critical Post Chicago, Scott Pollock, featured the Dutch banker who talked about that he could not participate in these child ritual sacrifices anymore. He wouldn't participate in this. He wouldn't play ball anymore. You know, how many more whistleblowers, folks, before you realize what on earth is going on? I've featured people in this report who have been in government black op programs, unacknowledged programs where they torture children, they mind control them through MK Ultra, they do trauma-based mind control on people through the military. Folks, we already lost this country. But if we all stand up, we can get it back, but only if we're united. And there's the only way it's going to happen. We have to unite. They divided us because we were weaker divided, but we have to unite under the principles of human rights. That's what's going to unite us. And we're not going to split hairs and debate over what human rights mean. Everybody's entitled to human rights. And what's happening now is that we are being depopulated, poisoned, we are being sickened, and we are being murdered through these psychopaths who are in positions of power and can't and have no business being in these positions of power. And we are grateful that President Trump is he has done an amazing job trying to drain the swamp, trying to expose people. And if he hadn't had Fauci there, nobody would have known who Fauci is when this video came out. It wouldn't have had the same impact. According to Dr. Mikovich, the funding for when the question came up about whether this was created in a lab, she said that it was not possible to only through like 100 years of evolution or something could this possibly happen, because she was exposing the fact that that human fetal cells and animal cells being used in vaccinations were giving diseases to people. And that's when they shut her down and put her in prison and all of this, shut her up and all of that. When are we going to learn, folks? When are we going to learn? What's it going to take? And I'm going to tell you that, we can all stand up right now and just end the suffering. We can end it all right now, or we can sit by and watch more suffering and death until it gets real personal to you. I mean, those are the only two options. There's an agenda from very powerful people. We can see Bill Gates. We can see George Soros, who's funding all of this, and Bill Gates. What a psychopath. The man has no background in medicine. What is he doing creating and funding research for vaccinations and traveling around the world giving babies vaccinations to depopulate us? That's why, because they're dying. And the funding for this Wuhan, the funding, according to Dr. Mikovich, it started in Fort Detrick in the military um, research labs and went to Wuhan. Okay, that's where the virus happened. That's where it was created. This did not just jump from a bat to a human. She says it's not possible that it cannot be transmitted that way. So this had to be manipulated. So we have, and how do we do this? Well, look, we have prestigious, right? False idols. Oh, we put Harvard on such a high pedestal, didn't we? We put Harvard University on such a high pedestal, Yale, and they are the worst in terms of, they've been taking so much foreign money from foreign governments that Harvard University has a recruitment center in Shanghai. And it's getting to the point where America has been sold out, sold down the river. Every last bit of it. Every bit of it. The politicians are all paid off and corrupt. And the problem was, because we worship false idols, right? All the foreign leaders knew this. Oh, Hollywood and glamour and, nice cars and the nice homes and, the American dream and this and that and all that. They knew that there were corruptible people here, that there were people who they could bribe. And one by one, decade after decade after decade after decade, the plan was complete. America was completely infiltrated, and we have lost our country. And Donald Trump is really the only thread that's holding it together right now. But he can't do it alone. He needs our help. We need to be the checks and balances. So I'm going to start screen sharing. Let me check in and say hello. Hi, everybody. How are you? Yeah, exactly. Soros is definitely an actor in this. Exactly. We have to help Trump. We have to make sure he gets reelected. We have to make sure that the swamp draining is, continues. Yeah. No. Folks, I'm not preaching. This is just an opening monologue that I'm trying to kind of be, sound the alarm here for everybody. Many people know this. Many of the Goldfish Report viewers are completely on top of this. They get it. I'm really talking to the people who are going to find and come upon Goldfish Report, the people who have yet to tune into Goldfish Report, but will be. And those are the ones who are going to be looking for answers when their family members died with no other pre-exist. Look, they're faking all the COVID deaths, right? I mean, if you happen to have COVID, they're saying most people have COVID-19. They just aren't symptomatic, right? So if you died because you had other underlying conditions, you're being marked as a COVID death because the hospitals get a lot of money for every person who dies from COVID in their hospital, in their facility. What a scam, folks. What a scam. So, I can go on about that, and I'm going to have other reports. Jim Fetzer and I reported on this on our political theater report. And I'm telling you, folks, we're really at a crossroads. And that's really why I'm spending the time with a little bit of a monologue, because we are at a crossroad. We either, we're either the checks and balances, we the people, or we're going to lose this. Well, we have lost it. The question is, do we deserve to get it back? And that's up to us. Okay. So this is going to be from May 2nd to the 6th. And I'm not going to include all of today's because It's still being published up until like 10 o'clock at night. So I'm just going to report. This is it, the U.S. Judiciary, the broken branch, right? When these three branches of government collude together to defraud the American people, to harm the American people, we don't stand a chance unless we, the people, become those checks and balances. Okay, President approved. I'm not going to go into details about this. I'm just going to read the title of it because it's all that's necessary. So the president approves South Carolina disaster declaration. All 50 states have, in fact, filed for emergency declaration. So we've talked about that before. Yeah, today's Senate hearing was for DC Circuit judge. I'm sorry, DC judge who is being nominated for the Circuit Court, the DC Circuit Court judge position. He was. I don't know if anybody saw that today. Thought it was very interesting. Of course, the Democrats, the way they, question him it's so. What's antagonistic. They're very antagonistic, I found. Clearly you want to understand how this person thinks as he's going to be on one of the most important courts, right? We're going to have I think a lot of people are going to get reeled in pretty soon to not only what happened with General Flynn and the FBI, but what's happened with the top of the CDC and the National Institute of Allergy and Immunology, right? So they're going to want to really vet this guy very good, and of course they did. Okay, so here we have 30 nominations. President's very, very, very serious, and one withdrawal sent to the Senate. You can go to the blog and take a look, but there's a lot of them. Some of these are certain positions, some of the within the federal retirement, within the federal government. Not all judges. Some are ambassador extraordinaire, ambassador to certain countries. We have other positions, even some in the military, undersecretary of State of Arms Control and International Security, Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. We have Defense Nuclear Facility Safety Board. So these kinds of positions here, you can come here. There's 30 folks. I'm not going to read them all. All right. I'm not going to read them all, but I will scroll down. That's really the most I've ever seen in one press release, to be honest with you. The top 10 moments from President Trump's town hall, and I have to say that I felt it was very awkward. There was something awkward about it, and if you saw that town hall and you felt the same way, please put your comments in the live chat or even in the comments section, because it did feel a little awkward. I'll be honest. He was on defense the minute he sat down, because I think it was like an ambush between, Brett Barr and Martha McCallum, who's, again, just steering an agenda. I mean, they're not looking for the truth. And that's what happens. They're not looking for the truth. So all they wanted to focus on was negative, 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 and try to blame the president for things. And it was an ambush. And unfortunately, the president must have known that, because he was on defense. But he also had the facts to back him up. So he wasn't worried about it. I just wished he was a little bit more relaxed about it. But I guess, you can't really be that relaxed when you're being attacked like that. So with the Lincoln Memorial as a backdrop, President Trump took questions from Americans for 2 hours last night as part of a Fox News virtual town hall. We never had a more beautiful set than this, the president said, and it was true. Of course, a president who emancipated slaves, is this what President Trump is doing? Is he emancipating us from our debt slavery status? I hope so, and I think so as well. So in terms of the coronavirus, oh my God, folks, it's like I really don't even want to report on this anymore. If you want more information about this coronavirus and the administration, I will tell you this. The president announced he's going to be unwinding this task force by the end of May. So, or by May 30th. So you're not going to see any more news conferences. In fact, you're not going to see them because it's very possible Fauci might be in some big trouble. And we also have uh, our new press secretary, uh, Kaylee McNanny. So she's doing a good job. I think she's doing a very good job. You can come here and take a look. So other than the fact that we're going to be, obviously, the White House is already transitioning out of doing these news conferences. We just can't have those people up there anymore and talking and, giving bad advice to people. The president's very serious about making sure governors are following the guidelines that he's established in order to reopen. And unfortunately, there's going to be some people who won't be able to reopen. Their business just couldn't survive and they couldn't recover from this. And that's unfortunate. There's always going to be casualties, collateral damage of one kind or another. But here's a beautiful picture from the Lincoln Memorial and of that town hall meeting. And of course, they were social distancing. They were quite far apart from each other. So that virtual town hall. We have some more nominations to posts. This is a general counsel of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's definitely someone that you want to pay attention to. And also for Connecticut, this person is from Connecticut. I see Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict. Interesting. Okay, here we also have our POTUS report. I'm sorry, our political theater from Monday with the FETs, the villain, the muse, and the hero. And clearly on Monday, I had outlined that Dr. Judy Mikovits was definitely the hero this week for sure. The villain, of course, was Dr. Fauci, and the muse. Oh my goodness. You'll have to watch the video to find out who that was. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go into the details of this because of the transcript, because it was they're very long. The transcripts are very long. In fact, I'm going to take it off screen share so I can just get through that. You can go to the blog, the goldfishreport.blogspot.com, and you can take a look at the entire transcript if you'd like, and what the president discussed in that virtual town hall in detail. But we are going to be summing that up through our reporting here tonight. We're going to be summing this up. I just want to check in with everybody. How are you all? How's everybody doing tonight? Did everybody see that? Yeah, Chinese spy drones. Yeah, we are really, folks, we've been giving it away. Exactly. Yeah, we've been giving it away, and we need to be the checks and balances. And we, the people, we all have to do it. And I'm glad to see people are protesting. People have to stand up, and I'm glad to start seeing doctors do it, because you really find people who who go along with the status quo and don't want to rock the boat. But these people understand how serious it is. And I've been trying to sound the alarm for 5 years now. Because once you realize you have no rights, it's all an illusion. It's just an illusion. You have no rights. Especially if you're a threat to their agenda, you have no rights at all. You get less than everybody else. And let me prove that to you, okay? Terminal Island prison in California has the highest COVID-19 rate of all prisons. It's very, very tragic, actually. You have inmates that are dying there. I'm going to screen share this before I continue, because I don't have an awful lot to talk about tonight for the president, but because I am trying to do it midweek, because Friday, and I don't want them to be really super long. So 6th inmate dies from coronavirus at Terminal Island Prison in San Pedro. So here you have people who are prisoners who have even less rights, because apparently they all have a death sentence now of COVID-19, right? Death sentence by COVID. Six inmates die. Why haven't they been protecting the inmates? I mean, some of these people are just people who maybe made mistakes. They're not violent offenders. These are people, I'm not speaking for all of them, but I think many of them are not. And it says here that more than 600 inmates have and 14 staff members have now tested positive for COVID-19. 6 inmates have died. I just wonder if that number is not even higher. Let's just hear what they have to say about this. Hold on a second. I want to make sure I'm screen sharing the audio and sound on this so you can all hear it. Let's hear what this report is saying.
A sixth inmate at Terminal Island Federal Prison in San Pedro has now died from coronavirus. Officials say 58-year-old Eduardo Robles Holguin was hospitalized and put on a ventilator after he tested positive about a week and a half ago. He died yesterday. More than 600 inmates and 14 staff members at that prison have contracted this virus, and families of some of the inmates protested living conditions at that prison just last week. There's also another outbreak at the California Institution for Men in Chino. So far, 211 inmates at the prison have tested positive, along with one inmate dying. 44 prison employees have also tested positive.
Well, some people say, well, why should we care about prisoners? And the reality is that sorry, I have to turn that off. The reality is, folks, is that everybody, they're in there doing their time. And if their sentence is not a death sentence, then it shouldn't be a death. They shouldn't die while they're there because of neglect of the prison, not protecting them from this virus. And the fact that these people have died, I think you're going to see a really big pushback. And maybe some of these people were whistleblowers who were in prison and they were being silenced. Maybe some of these people were patriots who were trying to do the right thing and they were put in prison. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. I'm going to screen share this again. This is another report. The LA Times also reported on this. Let's take a look at this. Here you have family members of prisoners of inmates who are out protesting. And it's like, we should care because God forbid something ever happened. And even if you're innocent, you have to go into prison until you're, either released or you're proven guilty. Look at Austin Steinbart. He was put in prison for several days, and he was not found guilty of anything yet. Maybe he won't be, but he was forced to be in that prison. And so just because you're there, doesn't even mean that you did anything wrong. It can happen to anybody, folks. It really can. And we really need to have compassion and empathy for folks. Now, it's not to say that the ones who are murderers and gang members don't belong there. Sure, they do, because they're violent criminals. But there's other people who don't belong in there, and clearly it's an absolute it's misery. And I'm telling you, folks, that I have had people call on these prisons, and word inside, I have contacts inside the prisons telling me these are criminal conditions. They're so packed, and there's no social distancing, and there's no appropriate hygiene, and there's all kinds of problems. There's shortages of people, and they can't meet. Now, are these privatized prisons? Are these prisons there's no regulation? Is there anybody regulating and checking these prisons to make sure that they meet federal standards, even if they're privatized? This is the whole thing. Like, who cares, though? Who cares about prisoners, right? I'll tell you, you'll care when you have a family member, a loved one in there, and you will just want to make sure they're there to do their time. They're not there to be tortured and to be given a death sentence by viruses and bacteria due to improper cleanliness or hygiene, or whatever is causing this to spread. And we all should be concerned about this. We all should be. Honestly, folks. So let's go to, let's move along. I don't want to screen share the whole transcript of this. The president was in Arizona yesterday, in Phoenix, Arizona yesterday, at the Honeywell plant. And he was there thanking them and honoring them for producing all of the ventilators and all of the I think, all their participation under the National Defense Act and helping the country out with supplies that they needed. So they were very, 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 very grateful. The president flew in all the way there just to I'm sorry. Yes, it was Honeywell. I'm sorry. I hope I said the name of it correctly. It was a mask production facility. So that was in Phoenix. Hmm. So you can see some clips. I do have some clips about that on the Twitter, but we'll talk about that. I'm going to screen share what came from the White House about this today. President Trump visits repurposed factory in Arizona. So that's interesting, right? American manufacturing is at the heart of our battle against the coronavirus. Companies across the country have heeded President Trump's call and repurposed entire factories to make personal protective equipment and other needed special supplies. Honeywell is one such business with an incredible story to tell. Today, President Trump saw firsthand how the company transformed an aerospace facility in Arizona, one that de- one that designed and manufactured aircraft propulsion engines and auxiliary power units into a nimble face mask production line. As a result, Honeywell is expected to produce more than 20 million N95 masks per month. This expanded operation has allowed the firm to begin hiring 500,000 additional workers at its Phoenix facility. I'm sorry, that's not 500,000, 500. I'm sorry, that's correct. I correct myself. 500 additional workers at its Phoenix facility, creating jobs during the tough times for many Americans. And President Trump told them they made America very proud. And here is the video um, from that. Hold on a second. I'm going to screen share it, but I just want to make sure that when I screen share it, I've got the sound. Yeah, I've got the sound on it. Okay, let's listen.
Moments ago, we saw the brand new production lines where you're making high quality N95 respirators, and they are made to perfection. There's no bad masks like various countries have been sent some very bad masks from other places. There's nothing like that at Honeywell. Respirators are there to protect our heroic doctors and nurses as they fight the unseen enemy. More than 150 Honeywell employees are working around the clock, 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week. You are the greatest industrial, and think of this, what you've done. You're part of this incredible industrial mobilization, the biggest since World War II. Hard to believe for an invisible enemy, but it's a vicious enemy, smart enemy. Like generations of patriots before you, the workers of this factory are pouring their heart and their soul and their blood into defending our nation and keeping our people healthy and safe. You make America proud. You really do, and I want to thank you very much. That's why I'm here. Moments ago, we saw the brand new...
Sorry about that. Yeah, so there was the president at the Honeywell factory, and it was a moment that, it was great to see him travel because, he can't do the rallies right now, but that hasn't stopped some people. There's boaters who have organized their boat rallies, and all these boats down in Palm Beach, Florida, over to Jupiter Island waterway there, have all been trying to, I guess you would just say, try to rally support for the president. By having these convoys of boats with Trump flags and American flags and all that to show their support, which is really nice. I think it's very, very nice of them to do that. So let's go back and see what else we have going on here. We also have the private sector is the best on earth, is too valuable to leave on the sidelines during this global pandemic. Rather than rely on government alone, President Trump has led the largest mobilization of both public and private sectors since World War II, using every resource available to stop this invisible enemy, as he just said, right? And that included the Defense Production Act, which we just cited, and all those other details there. So it's really wonderful. And then, of course, the president, this was historic support for our Native American communities. This was also, quite a good thing to do while he was in Arizona, which is, all Indian country there. First up in Arizona was a roundtable discussion on support for Native Americans during this difficult time. Meeting with local and tribal leaders, the president said that no community will be left behind as we unite against this virus. And we'll screen share this clip for you to hear on that.
Native Americans have been hit hard by this terrible pandemic. Over 2,000 members of the Navajo Nation have really, I mean, it's been incredible what's taken place, and there's nothing we can say. But the coronavirus is tragically, as you just said, 70 people have lost their lives. The administration is deploying the full resources of the federal government to support and protect our Native American communities in this very grave time of need. And I know that I think I can speak very strongly for Martha and for the governor. We're full hands on deck, and you're working very hard. I know that, Doug. Work very, very hard.
So there was the president at that roundtable, and there is more information on that roundtable as well, which we're going to talk about. Sorry, I was just sneezing. Gee. Allergy time. The CARES Act, signed by President Trump in March, authorizes $8 billion to support tribal governments with response and recovery needs. They lost 70 people, according to President Trump, in that video clip. Today, the Trump administration announced that it is distributing the first $4.8 billion batch of those funds, which make for the largest investment in a single program for Indian country in our history. President Trump is uniquely committed to supporting the well-being of our American Indian and Alaska Native communities. Last year, he signed the first ever presidential proclamation recognizing the grave issue of missing and murdered Native Americans. And here is the president photo of the day. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I thought it was nice. And this was the president arriving at Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix. And it's hot. From what I hear, it's very, very hot there, huh? Here it is. Here's the proclamation on missing and murdered American Indians and Alaska Natives Awareness Day 2020. Here you have, and it's important. I'm gonna read just a little bit of it. The American Indian and Alaska Native people have endured generations of injustice. They experience domestic violence, homicide, sexual assault, and abuse far more frequently than other groups. These horrific acts, committed predominantly against women and girls, are egregious and unconscionable. During Missing and Murdered American Indians and Alaska Native Awareness Day, we reaffirm our commitment to ending the disturbing violence against these Americans and to honor those whose lives have been shattered and lost. It's very, very true. You can come and read the whole thing here. I'm not going to read the entire the entire statement here, but the whole proclamation. But you can come to the goldfishreport.blogspot.com and you can take a look at it and read it all yourself. And here is a little bit more of a review. So the president is working to make sure Native American communities have the support they need to combat the coronavirus. Again, the president signed the CARES Act into law, and that provided the funding for the address the coronavirus preparedness, response, and recovery for American Indians and Alaska Natives. Okay, so you can come and take a look at this in more details. The president had also acted to expand telehealth capacity and availability across IHS regions, allowing patients to get the care they need while staying at home. And of course, in early March, the president established a multi-agency coordinating group tasked with ensuring effective federal coordination on tribal issues. The administration has also allocated over $1 billion through the Indian Health Services, which is the IHS, to support tribes, tribal organizations, and urban Indian organizations in their coronavirus response. So here, delivering vital supplies, the President Trump administration has rapidly delivered critical medical supplies to Native American communities in need. Unprecedented supplies of critically needed medical equipment have been delivered by the Trump administration to Native American communities. The federal government delivered 250 Abbott testing systems to IHS, and they have been distributed to IHS and tribal healthcare facilities through Indian country. These systems allow for rapid testing at the time and place of patient care and expands testing capacity, especially important for harder to reach and vulnerable populations. The administration sent 100 ventilators to Arizona to support Indian country. Excuse me, folks. Trump administration has worked closely to provide relief, including the delivery of 50 ventilators to the Navajo Nation, which has seen significant impacts from the coronavirus. I'm sorry. I'm just having, I think, a little. I have to clear my throat a little from allergies here. Okay, supporting tribal communities. President Trump remains committed to supporting the well being of our American Indians and Alaska Natives. As we said before, this was a first time the president issued the first ever executive order establishing a task force on missing and murdered American Indians and Alaska Natives, whose work is underway. That's interesting, folks. We'll definitely keep an eye on that here, because I also have ancestry. I don't really look like it, but I do. I have Indian ancestry as well, and that happened through the Trail of Tears, and we'll get into that another time. To examine systemic problems at IHS, the president launched his presidential task force on protecting Native American children served by IHS. President Trump has also worked to enhance coordination between the federal government and tribal leaders on promoting economic growth and improving standards of living. President Trump reactivated the White House Council on Native American Affairs to promote economic development and rural prosperity in Indian country. Well, of course he should. I mean, they were here before us. Don't you think we should, do what we can? I'm telling you, it is, this whole Standing Rock, which everybody probably forgot. It's like, what was that? What was that? But Standing Rock was a big deal. It really brought a lot of indigenous um, communities together globally. It wasn't just happening in South Dakota. It was amazing to see the outpouring of support from so many different indigenous cultures throughout the world who were showing their support any way they could, and usually through social media, through making signs, doing certain things about, water is life, and really being that voice of reason for all of us to stand and remember that we have this connection to this earth, and we can't exploit this to an extent where it's going to poison us, and that'll be the end of us, right? So there's great wisdom from the Native American communities that we need to embrace, because we are so removed from our relationship to this planet, and we're only to blame for that. So it's really great that the president is putting so much focus and attention on making sure that the indigenous population is taken care of and respected. And it's great to see him reactivate this council on Native American affairs. Like I said, we have to understand and realize we have a relationship with the ground we stand on. And there's no one better to remind us of this and to keep that spirit and tradition alive than the Native American culture. Absolutely. And so let's just close up with, like I said, I'm not going to be reporting everything that came out today because I'll be finishing the report on Friday. So come back on Friday and I'll have the remainder of tonight plus Thursday and Friday. So that should be good. I'm sorry, I'm starting to have allergy throat here. Just post-nasal drip is more like it. President Trump is working to protect students from sexual misconduct and restore fairness and due process to our campuses. So this might have been new for some people, or you might not have heard of this. Of course, anything really good the president does, you're not going to hear about it on MSM anyway, because they're fake news. So President Trump, what we have with today's action and every action to come, the Trump administration will fight for America's students. Gee, I hope so. I was blocked from graduate school because I said that the Federal Reserve was a private organization. And well, that was public policy graduate school, and so that's not allowed. Okay, so taking historic action, President Trump is ensuring that all students are safe to learn and achieve without facing sexual harassment and sexual assault in our nation's schools. Right. This was not a sexual assault incident. This was just First Amendment. So today, the Department of Education is issuing a final regulation to strengthen Title IX protections for survivors of sexual misconduct and fight sexual misconduct in schools. For the first time in history, the new regulation will codify that sexual harassment, including sexual assault, dating violence, and domestic violence and stalking, is prohibited under Title IX. This new regulation will hold schools accountable for failures to respond equitably and promptly to incidents of sexual misconduct. The action also empowers survivors to make decisions about how a school responds to incidents of sexual harassment. This rulemaking follows years of wide-ranging research, careful deliberation, and careful input from stakeholders, including survivors, and over 124,000 public comments. This is good, folks, for anyone out there, any viewers who have children in college or about to go into college. This is really wonderful news. Um, Ensuring even-handed justice. The president's new rules will also ensure that schools can no longer inflict long-standing harm against students before providing basic fair procedures. I just have to interject here that no matter what laws the president's, it's an executive order. I shouldn't be making too many laws, but I mean, that's what the legislature is for. But, it doesn't matter what executive orders or laws are legislated, if the courts are not going to enforce them, they don't mean anything. They mean nothing. And that has to be addressed. We have to address the failure of the Justice Department and the judiciary and the complicity and the deprivation of rights under color of law. We have to do that. Because it's great. It's really wonderful to see the president doing all of this, but it's not going to mean a thing if it's not going to be enforced in a court. So today's final regulation will also provide due process protections to students facing accusations of sexual misconduct. So folks, come here and take a look. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Come to the blog, take a look at it. It's really good news, but again, like I said, it has to be enforced like any other law. It has to be enforced. So here we go. Our states stayed open in the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's why our approach worked. This is 5 Republican governors, 5 states whose states stayed open. The diversity of the 50 states is what makes our nation's economy great, and each state responses to the novel coronavirus is as diverse as the pandemic's impact on each of us. So this is Governor Gordon from Wyoming, Governor Ricketts from Nebraska, Governor Hutchinson from Arizona, Governor Reynolds from Iowa, Governor Parson from Missouri, according to the Washington Post. Restarting our economy is not a race to be won, but a cooperative effort. Our approach has created a model for success that can be applied throughout the country. Absolutely. And I applaud these governors, even I applaud these governors who, you know, the president left the power in the hands of the governor, which is where it should be, and these governors made the right call, according to these doctors who have come out and said, you know, that quarantining the healthy is not how to solve this problem. You quarantine the sick. So, this has been a point of dispute, within the experts. In other news, First Lady Melania Trump has donated 150 box lunches to patients and staff at Children's Inn, part of the National Institute of Health in Maryland. Last week, she also sent care packages to kids and staff at hospitals in 10 states and Washington, D.C. A small token of my appreciation, she said. President Donald Trump signed a proclamation Tuesday in Arizona that aims to bring awareness to ongoing violence in Native American communities, which we've already talked about. The proclamation declared Tuesday as Missing and Murdered American Indians in Alaska's Native Awareness Day. Trump visited Arizona on Tuesday to tour Phoenix's Honeywell facility, which we also just reported. Our country needs an experienced, principled leader to handle our most sensitive information during this tumultuous time across the world. It's time for all these reasons that John Ratcliffe is the right choice for Director of National Intelligence and for America. And if anybody saw, did anybody see the confirmation hearings for Ratcliffe? Did anybody have any comments they wanted to make about that? Hi, Slim. How are you? Hi, everybody. Thank you. Hell yeah. I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah. Did anybody see the Senate confirmation hearings for Ratcliffe? Because it seems like he is a good person to be in that position. So look, this really kind of yes, the courts treat and charge you as a corporation. You must notice then that you are living, that you are a living being, and that you were born on the land of your state. Then challenge jurisdiction. Slim Frank, yeah, it's very true. I mean, the problem is that if you're still, if they have reason to silence you, then they will use their full power to ignore that. We've seen them do that to Winston Shrout. We've seen them do that to Dr. Judy Mikovits, who had no charges against her. They said she was a fugitive of justice or something, but there were no charges, yet she was in prison. So I really hope that people can find that video again. And you know what I'm going to do? It actually might be on BitChute, which would be really great for, let's see if they put it up on BitChute. That's what we have to do. I mean, we have to make YouTube obsolete if this is what they're going to do. I mean, I hope it doesn't come to this, but let's see. No, she didn't put it on. They didn't put it on. Doesn't look like they put it on. Sorry, my light's in the way. Doesn't look like they put it on BitChute. I would have screen shared it for everybody. Oh well. Maybe I spelt it wrong here. Wow. Yeah, no, it is on there. It is. No, not the whole thing though. So, okay, so she is on here talking about it. So let's hear a little bit of what she's going to talk about. Let me screen share this. This is what I was talking about in the beginning of the report, where I say, folks, we really have to be the checks and balances here. Once you understand that there really is an agenda that's a nefarious agenda, an agenda that's not intended for our highest good, then everybody needs to step up and do their part. So let's screen share this a little bit and listen to what this interview is talking about.
On the show. She is a brilliant researcher who has been studying viruses for 40 years, a former AIDS scientist who conducted groundbreaking work with HIV. She is also the author of A Plague of Corruption, in which she details her experience with Dr. Fauci and the role she says he plays in corruption. Welcome, Dr. Judy Mikovits. It's so nice to have you on the show today.
Thanks so much, Christina. It's nice to be here.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. You're getting your story out here. You wrote your book, A Plague of Corruption. Right now, what we're dealing with is the coronavirus, and who is the face of that coronavirus, of course, is Dr. Fauci. You talk a lot about Dr. Fauci. You talk a lot about corruption. My first question to you with this is, why are you telling your story? Why now? Why are you coming out?
Well, actually, I've been telling this story now for almost 4 decades throughout my career, and in the last decade in 2 books, one called Plague, which was published in 2014, and here with Plague of Corruption, which just published on April 14th, and really it's it's the entire medical establishment of the HHS, Health and Human Services, with respect to infectious diseases, which Tony Fauci has led since 1984. Really, my first interaction with him was started this journey in this plague of corruption, and I've never really been silent.
Well, that's good to hear, and it's good to hear that it's coming out more now than ever it needs to. So I want to go over your story. It's very complex, so we're going to take this piece by piece so viewers can actually grasp the gravity of what you're saying here. We're going to start with that first interaction that you had with Fauci. We're going to go back to when you were 25 years old. You started working with a man named Frank Ruscetti, who is your mentor. He is the one who first discovered the retrovirus, the disease-causing retrovirus HTLV. Explain why that was important and how it led to that first interaction you had with Fauci, and how you say Fauci cost millions of lives.
Well, it had long been thought that there were no human disease-causing retroviruses, but Frank Ruscetti and Bernie Poise isolated the first disease-causing human retrovirus, and it caused a leukemia. It caused a T-cell leukemia. That was in 1980. It was published. Dr. Ruscetti then worked with under Dr. Robert Gallo. He was fired for getting too much credit for his discoveries. He also discovered T-cell growth factor, which is now known as interleukin-2, and those two things are key to the biology and that first interaction, because he was fired and removed from Bethesda Laboratories to Frederick, Maryland, in Fort Detrick, where I was working as a technician there. And I started working for him, and I was part of the team that isolated from blood and saliva what was then lymphadenopathy virus. We had confirmed Nobel laureate Luc Montagnier's discovery of what was thought to be the causative agent of AIDS, and that was later termed HIV by in the United States. So that paper was in press. In publication and confidential, when I got a call when Dr. Ruscetti was out of town one day from Bob Gallo and Tony Fauci, who asked for a copy of that paper. I explained to them it was confidential and in press, and it would be unethical, and I would not give them a copy of that paper. Fauci screamed at me. I had no idea who he was and really didn't care if he screamed at me all day long. He threatened to fire me at that time. And basically, I didn't give him the paper. When Dr. Ruscetti returned a few weeks later, he was bullied into giving Dr. Fauci and Gallo a copy of that paper. They copied our work. Later turned it into an international incident between France and the U.S. as to who actually discovered HIV, and millions died worldwide, and this virus spread worldwide, but because they prevented the diagnostic tests from being used, and treatments from being developed and used, while they fought over who owned the patents.
Wow. So that delay caused.
Yeah, so what she talks about in her plague of corruption, this, I guess you would say that it was it was like a trailer, or it was like a trailer. It was a 25-minute movie, okay? Introduction to the book, I suppose, a little bit of a preview of the book and who she is. And she did talk about that the universities are now, that there was a law, and I can't recall the name of it, but I will look it up, that allows these researchers at universities, actually at the National Institutes of Health, to file for patents for discoveries that were made through using taxpayer money. So that should belong to the people. And as a result of that, this is where Dr. I've been pronouncing her name wrong, Mikovits, right? Mikovits. This is where Dr. Mikovits, PhD Dr. Mikovits, explains that this is where the corruption has gotten out of control, because the people who are inventing and discovering this are profiting from it as well, and they're also playing God, and they're in control of whether tests are then made for providing diagnosis, and whether or not treatments are then created for it. And in fact, it looks like Dr. Fauci has an awful lot of blood on his hands for all the millions of people who has been who have died as a result of his deliberate actions. So it's quite serious, folks. And I can't, I'm going to tell you. I mean, the message from that is huge. I can see why YouTube didn't want it getting out, because they're protecting the agenda to depopulate the earth. There's only two agendas here, folks. You either want humanity to prosper, or you want them dead. You want us dead. There's only two agendas, right? So we have to stand up for ourselves as humanity. Humanity has to stand up for ourselves, because these have to be demons. These can't possibly be human beings that are, in the sense that we understand them. Maybe that's just an analogy I'm using, but it's an anti-life force, and they want us dead. So I think that we can all agree on. Whoever they are, whoever, the deep state is, we know who they are. We don't have to know every name, but we get the idea, right? So I'm going to just check in with everybody and see how you're doing. This is a little bit longer, yeah, than I wanted, but it's okay. Yeah, I did kind of, folks, the only reason I'm spending the time to even, I've never done any monologues before, but I felt that we're at this precipice. It's that important. I really hope you hear in my voice, see from my seat, from my position, from where I'm sitting, at least for an hour, or at least for 20 minutes that I was talking about this. I've been working at this for how many years now? I'm almost at 500 reports, and they're not 20-minute reports. These are in-depth interviews, and um, there's whistleblowers, there's all kinds of information on people. But right now, and of course, we were right here when QAnon came on the scenes, and we were reporting on Q, and we were interpreting Q and decoding Q. And then it just got to be like, who needs to know every single detail? At this point, we needed to understand the overall plan, and that's being executed right now, and it's happening. So this is really, we are experiencing much more censorship. Kuala Pele's blog has been censored. They finally took him down. I mean, he was able to go under the radar for the past couple years, because the GoldFish Report's original YouTube channel was deleted, never restored. Our blogs were deleted, never restored. So, and what Dr. Mikovits was saying was, she has no constitutional rights. She has no rights, and she's right. None of us do. We're all surety for the debts of the globalists. So until we get out of that status of being a commodity, of being a debt slave, until we get out of the status of being surety and become live human beings again with the unalienable rights, the God-given unalienable rights, then we're going to be in big trouble. But we have to be the checks and balances, folks. It's up to us. There's no savior. President Trump's doing everything he can to help us, but he needs our help. It's time now to ask what you can do for your country, because this is the final battle for America. So I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. I appreciate you joining me in the live chat. And to all of those who are going to be watching this afterwards, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to help support the Goldfish Report, folks, you can become a Patreon. You can follow the link in our description section here, or you can go to thegoldfishreport.com on our website and make a donation there if you'd like to help. This is public social media, folks. There is no other funding available. It does keep these reports going, and it keeps helps supports the cost of doing so. So we do appreciate your help. And to all those who are Patreons, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for standing with us all this time and being Patreons and supporting us, because we can't do it without you. So we want to thank everybody. So everyone, I'm going to be signing off. I want to thank you again for your wonderful comments. I appreciate them. And I will be back Friday night with another, the rest of the week's POTUS report. We do have some other very interesting interviews coming up, so I will let you know when that happens. I have not made an announcement regarding the 500th Goldfish Report yet, but I would like to make that special, and I'm not going to announce anything about that yet, but we will. I guess we'll all wait and see, won't we? So thanks everybody for viewing. Have a wonderful night. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Bad Cat. I appreciate it. Yeah. I don't know if the Lord can even fix the depth of corruption, to be honest with you. I think this is, someone said to me once, if you have a mountain and that's in your way, or this obstacle, but it's a mountain, right? And you have a shovel and you ask God for help. What do you ask God to do? Do you ask God to take the shovel? And the question is, the answer really is only God can move mountains. You need to take that shovel and do your part. So it's not like God's going to take the shovel and do the digging for us. We have to do it. So folks, that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you Friday night for the remainder of our POTUS report, and have a great night, folks, and we'll see you Friday. Thanks for viewing. I've lost my screen. Here we go. Oh, and by the way, I will be doing a follow-up on this gardening, this guerrilla gardening, because I'm a complete failure at it, and so far, I don't I have some problems that I can't seem to overcome with regard to my climate and my soil. So I think I have to have other solutions, and we will be talking about that because it's problems that everybody runs into. And the way I look at it is the more mistakes I make, the more I learn. So, and I'm sure there's lots of people who will be happy to learn along with me. So you've been digging since 1989. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. So thank you so much, Slim. Thank you, Robert, me, Bad Cat, Gummy Bears, 1, 2, 3, 4 question, Diane, Slim. Thank you so much, everybody. Anna, I appreciate you all being here. And so everyone have a great night. This concludes this edition of the Goldfish Report.